I really do mean that, though. It feels to me, sir, that we have an approach to mental health in this country is, oh, wow, there's a mass shooting. Perhaps he should have had some mental health care. And I'm saying he intentionally because often that's the way we approach mental health care when it comes to male identified people in our community, particularly Black male identified people in our community. And so I'd like to just hear from you your perspective on this, the way that we approach mental health generally in the Black community, that after effect approach that we take in the American community, and what, in your expertise, would be a much healthier way for the village to approach thinking about mental health going forward.
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to be able to destigmatize, our thoughts around mental health in general. I think, I know when I was growing up, the stigma around mental health was, oh my goodness, you're seeing a therapist, you're crazy, there's something going on, there's something wrong with you, all of that. When in reality, that's not the case. A lot of us go
Mm,
to, therapists for difficulty with stress, or possibly we don't know how to overcome an issue that, from childhood or anything like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that we're crazy and we're seeking
mm.
medication or anything like that. So I think once we as a culture are able to kind of destigmatize that and recognize the healing that can happen in therapy and the growth that can happen in therapy, I think that we will be able to just kind of take off, and we'll be able to really embrace what therapy has to offer.
You know, you are a part of this group, Minds in Motion, an organization that is dedicated to providing what you identify as outstanding therapeutic services for all populations through movement. And Minds in Motion, I've been following some of the work that y'all are doing. It seems to me that you have not just a healthier approach to thinking about mental health, but you have a culturally driven approach to thinking about mental health. Can you talk with us about the role that culture plays in securing a relationship with a mental health therapist that is going to be effective, and what role culture plays in helping to unpack what's happening to us in some of those therapy sessions?
Well, a lot of times, Black people will not go to a therapist because they feel like they will not understand where we're coming from. They won't
Right.
understand our culture. So it feels a lot better when we look across the room as a client to see our therapist looks like us, he behaves like us, he or she behaves like us, I'm sorry, and they come from a similar background as we do. So once we're able to see that, we open up a little bit more. We put those
Mm,
walls down just a little bit, because it's like, okay, well, I don't have to put on a certain voice. I don't have to watch what I say. I can be my full, authentic self without any repercussions or without any judgments coming from my therapist, which is huge.
mm.
So if our therapists are, down to earth and very authentic, and we can speak the exact same language as our clients, it allows our clients to be more open and want to grow and want to develop even more in the sessions that we have with them.
Mm. One of the things that I've been seeing is as I sort of take off my lawyer hat and put on my educator hat, and whereas the work that I do in the schools, and this is something that I've heard a lot from a lot of the educators that I work with, and that is that as a result of this pandemic, with these 2 years of lockdown or however long the lockdowns were, or all of this stuff that we went through as a nation, that the toll that they're seeing that those stressors have on their students, the young people, and I'm specifically speaking about the young Black men who are in their school communities, has been devastating. And yesterday we talked a lot about, the learning loss that took place over the course of the past 2 years, but the mental health support loss, because while you were at home, chances are if you had a therapist at school, and that's a big if for most of our students, you weren't still seeing that therapist during the pandemic. If you had a therapist before the pandemic, your ability to contact them regularly was often interrupted, as therapists themselves were going offline or going online because they were no longer able to do the in-person visits. There was just a lot there, and I'm wondering if you can talk with us about what you've seen in your practice as it pertains to the way that the stressors of the COVID-19 pandemic has particularly impacted Black men who you get a chance to meet and work with.
Yes, absolutely. A huge piece of, Black men going through school, whether it's middle school, high school, whatever. A big piece of that are the relationships that we're able to build with our friends, with our teachers, in person. It's so important to
Mm,
kind of build that. So with us having to experience this pandemic, we don't get that same closeness that we would get when we were actually in person in school. So a lot of times what I'm seeing now is a lot of social anxiety. I'm seeing a lot of
Mm,
just changes in comfortability around people. We don't necessarily know
mm,
how to carry those conversations or keep those conversations going because we're so used to being confined into this one space for,
yes.
I lost track of time. It seems like 2020 was just yesterday and it seems so far away at the
Right.
same time. So I think
Right.
once, we allow some of our young men to branch out and come out of this comfort zone that they've built themselves up in into the house or in their room or on the laptop, then we'll be able to, really kind of decrease some of that social anxiety, and hopefully just allow them to grow and develop a little bit more.
Can we talk about how that social anxiety shows up, particularly for some of the younger folks in our community? Because I when you said discomfort around people, I'm like, yeah, I've seen that. I feel like even in the young people in my own family, I've got some nephews, and we have a lot of nephews in the on one side of my family, and it feels like the boys they were impacted in ways that I don't think we have actually healthily unpacked. And there was a couple of incidents that took place over the past couple of months that just made me feel like, what? You're supposed to be 13 years old. Why are you acting like you're 9? Like, where is your cognitive ability? And my husband had recently gone into a building where he was working with some teachers there, and he was working with some of the young people, and had a beautiful session in their very culturally responsive space where this session was taking place. And then something happened on the way out the classroom, and these beautiful little boys who had just been having this wonderful time, something snapped. And in the hallway, a fight breaks out over something that had happened like days ago. And my husband was like, it took 3 grown ass black men, pardon my language, 3 grown ass black men for these 4th grade boys who we had just had juices with. We had just shared snacks. And, not for nothing, but we're good at working with kids. He was shook because he realized they might be 9 years old, but their reasoning skills, their ability to sort of think rationally is like at 6 years old. And it reminded me of something I used to joke about with my daughter. I was like, you might be going into the 2nd grade, but y'all missed a good year and a half. So you're really more like a 1st grader and a half. So, we would joke about it, but it feels like those 2 years of being locked away, in addition to creating the perfect foundation for a lot more social anxiety, they really disrupted our growth, our children, our young people's ability to figure out how to deal with people, how do you talk to people, how do you not go from 0 to 100 in 0.2 seconds. And can you talk with us through that a little bit? I know I'm not the only one seeing it, so talk with us a little bit about how that social anxiety is showing up, because I know a lot of parents who are like, what the hell is going on? You're supposed to be in the 5th grade, you're supposed to be in the 9th grade, why are you acting a good 2 to 3 years beneath where you're supposed to be chronologically?
Yeah. And, a lot of times we are missing that emotional regulation component in order, for us to be able to say, okay, this happened to me, but I don't have to necessarily react to it. I can have a response to it, which is completely different
Mm,
from a reaction. A reaction is
yeah.
something immediate. You don't really think about somebody stepped on my Jordans, I punch them in the face, as
Right.
opposed to a response. Somebody stepped on my Jordans. Okay, well, it's not really that big of a deal. I can get a paper towel, wipe them off. He didn't mean to do it. It's all good.
Right.
That allows us to think a little bit more. It allows us to calm down just a little bit and say, okay, let me process
Mm,
what happened. And am I really upset about this? Am I not really upset about this? Am I upset about it because everyone saw him do it and now I think I have to have a reaction to it? Or
right.
can I respond in a better way? So it's that social anxiety that comes up in, not necessarily wanting to be with other people, having that anxiety in terms of that nervousness, our hands sweating, and us feeling like we don't know exactly what to say and how to interact with others.
Mm,
In reality, it's something that, unfortunately it happened during the pandemic and we're seeing it more and more. But like you
yeah.
said, when we before the pandemic, if we're in the 5th grade, and then after we get back, well, from the pandemic, now we're in what, the 7th, those two
Mm,
years are valuable in our
yeah.
development, not
Yeah.
only with our peers, but just us, we have to learn certain things. If we miss an assignment in class, we have to know and kind of backtrack. Okay, well, I did this wrong. So how can I kind of come back and do it again the next time so that I don't
Mm,
have the exact same results? And
mm,
without those 2 years and those 2 years of us being on the computer and let's be honest, a lot of these kids, when we were on the computers, they weren't really fully engaged in the
right,
classroom.
right.
And with not having that engagement, it's okay, let me pretend like I'm paying attention, but in reality, I can step over here and act like I'm playing, PS5 real quick. So
Right.
it's something that we have to work on as a culture, just on getting better and kind of rebuilding. But it just has to start from somewhere. And a lot of times
Yeah.
that start with therapy and just being able to communicate with others.
Now, I would be lying if I said that I believe that all of these issues stem from the pandemic. I remember before the pandemic, there was an article that was following some young men, I want to say in Philadelphia, and it was, or at least that's where the article was based. And they were talking about the fact that young Black men don't be outside. Like they don't go outside, they stay in the house. And I was like, what? I see brothers on the stoop all the time. And the article was basically speaking to the fact that for young Black men who don't have a stoop crew, they in the house. They don't go outside. They don't go out to meet. They play on PlayStation. They interact electronically with people, and that's really something that we're seeing now. People able to play games with 50 million people, and so that really came to the fore during the pandemic. But the article was speaking to the fact that for many Black men, going outside is frankly dangerous, and it's fraught with concern, whether you're dressed appropriately or whatever that means, whether you're dressed in a way that makes you more comfortable, whatever that means, but that it was dangerous for them to be there. And the article was sort of wondering, where are all the young Black men? And it was tracing, between the ages of 25 and 40, brothers don't be outside, like, and the younger boys who be outside often end up dealing with some of the challenges that are there. And one of the things that attracted me to Minds in Motion was that you are a group of all Black men therapists, and I thought that if ever there were someone I could talk to about articles like that, it would be somebody from the Minds in Motion therapy group. Can you talk with us a little bit, even before the pandemic, just set the scene for what has been happening when it comes to young Black men, and I know I'm moving beyond the elementary school age, but when it comes to young Black men and their ability to find access to a clear mental health regime, process, space, because if this was happening before the pandemic is only exacerbating what already existed there. It feels to me like we are in a real desert when it comes to resources for young brothers outside of the barbershop. I don't really know of any places that Black men can go. I mean, I'm a Black woman. I got sister circles all day. I got sister circle in New Jersey. I got sister circle in Brooklyn. I could call a friend right now and find a sister circle anywhere I need to be. I don't know Black men who have that same resource. Can you help us set the tone a bit? And I know some of you are thinking, well, Lurie, I'm a Black man. I'm living this life. Okay, yeah. It's one thing to live a thing. It's another thing to analyze it and to unpack what it means. So I'm asking you, sir, if you can help us analyze and unpack the fears that are outside and how they contribute to the inability for young Black men to get access to the fullness of the life that they should be able to live.
Yes, and I think you did touch on it in terms of, there's a fear of going outside, and whether that is a fear of us possibly encountering, a situation with the police or possibly just another Black male who we may not
Right,
have interacted with before. And it's
right.
unfortunate, but in the same breath, we have to be able to create that space. And I think men are now, I would say over the last couple of years, we're just now starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with meeting up with other Black males and saying, or with other males in general.
Mm,
It's like, okay, well, hey, it's okay if we go to the gym. It's okay if we, go play basketball. And it's also okay if we're able to just talk about other things outside of basketball, outside
mm,
of school, outside of, what's going on at home or anything like that, but just talking about exactly how we feel. And
mm,
I found it's always so interesting to me that every most of the clients that I deal with now, especially the Black males that I deal with, a lot of times when I talk with them, they'll say, well, I was never really taught to share my feelings. I was
right.
always taught to hide those feelings and to, not show any type of weakness or vulnerability. And to be honest with you, it's so much strength and vulnerability. It's us being our
Mm,
authentic selves. It's us saying, hey, this is me, whether you accept me or not. I'm happy with myself and I'm happy with the person that I am. So I can tell you when something hurts. I can tell you when I
Huh.
feel sad about something. And I know that it does not take away from who I am as a man or my strength as a man. Because it's we all
Mm.
have feelings. We all feel some type of way about something, whether it's sadness, whether it's anger, and those feelings demand to be felt. So if we don't
Mm.
allow ourselves to actually feel them in a healthy way, they're going to come out in a negative way eventually somewhere down the line. So it's
Mm.
important that our young black males have those peers and have those older mentors where they can say, hey, I feel sad today. This is why I feel sad, and this is what I want to do about it. But just to have
Mm.
that confidence and to have that person there to say, okay, well, that's valid. I can understand why you would feel sad about that. I can understand what you're going through. I can understand how you're feeling right now. And
Yeah.
suddenly, you're saying that I can feel these feelings and you're not judging me or anything like that. Like, this is
Mm.
amazing. And that allows us to open up a little bit more. So that's, the main message I just want a lot of our young black males to walk away with today and in general is that there's so much strength and vulnerability.